Hey guys, my name is JC and welcome to today's gameplay video featuring Hinata Dawn-Crowned. We are once again putting Hinata to the test to see if she really lives up to her reputation and more importantly, to see how she performs in the wild. If you enjoy how this deck plays out, make sure to swing by the channel where you'll find a deck tech discussing all the included cards as well as the overall strategy. And with that, let's get to the game. So we run the die roll and we're going first. Let's see what our opening hand looks like. And now this is a really interesting one. Heliod's Intervention is great to have this early. We've got Interaction. Saheeli's Artistry is always good as a trick. Only 2 lands, but we do have some mana ramps, so we're really banking on drawing a land here. Look, I think it could go either way, but I'm going to risk it and try to hold on to it, and we'll see if we get punished later on. I think particularly against the Daretti player, having the Heliod's Intervention there is going to be really great. It's potentially going to shut them down, especially if they dump their hand fairly quickly. Now we draw into a Sublime Epiphany, great card, but we don't want to see it just yet, so not looking great to start off with. We'll just play our land and pass. Xyris just plays a land that gains them a life, and that's it for them. Rankle plays a land, and just passes there. Now Daretti plays their land for turn. They go and crack their fetch, and they put a mountain into play and then pass there. Okay, let's see if we get punished. And we certainly are. So we've got one more turn or otherwise we're going to be pretty sad here. So let's just get down our Liquid Metal Torque and leave it there. Xyris plays a land into a Howling Mine. At the beginning of each player's draw step, if Howling Mine is untapped, that player draws an additional card. You could not have asked for a better card to come down from our opponent in the situation we're in right now. We're very happy to see that. Don't think our opponents realised how much that's going to help us. I know it's part of their game plan, but once we get enough lands going, we've certainly got quite a lot of gas in our hand to keep doing things and interact with the board. Rankle plays their land into a Soul Ring. Very nice. And now they play a Waste Not. So they probably just got down 2 of the best cards in their deck, especially if that Rankle version has quite a heavy discard theme, which it probably does. And that's it for them. Howling Mine triggers. So they start with a Mox Diamond. That triggered their Waste Not. Unfortunately, they couldn't use the mana for anything. So now Daretti plays a mountain, and it looks like they're leaving the turn there. So we do draw a land for our first one. We're very happy to see that. Can we get lucky and draw another one? No, but we do have our Distorting Wake, aka the Cyclonic Rift of the deck. So I know this will be a little risky because we don't have any protection in hand at the moment, but I think the best thing at the moment is to try to get our commander down. So we'll play our Shadow Skull Smash in. We will pay the 3 life, and let's get our commander down. Let's just hope that Daretti doesn't have a Red Elemental Blast or Pyroblast in hand. And unfortunately they do. So that's very unlucky for us. So we'll return Hinata to the command zone. And unfortunately that is it for us for turn. So not a great start for us, but this is what you always risk. Especially playing Hinata, such a kill on sight commander. Howling Mine triggers for Xyris. And now they tap out for Zerzoth, Chaos Rider. Whenever an opponent draws their first card each turn, if it's not their turn, you create a 1/1 Red Devil creature token with when this creature dies, it deals 1 damage to any target, and whenever 1 or more devils you control attack 1 or more players, you and those players each draw a card, then discard a card at random. Not the worst thing to come down at the moment. And with that, they end the turn. Howling Mine triggers for Rankle. They play a land. And now we see a Virus Beetle come down. When it ETBs, each opponent discards a card. For us, we'll get rid of the Saheeli's Artistry. And it looks like from that, they're going to draw a card from us and then make 2 zombies from the other 2 players who must have discarded creature cards. So the Rankle player is certainly off to a really great start, especially so early. This is only turn 3. Now they play a Mana Crypt. So I think at this point all eyes are going to be on Rankle, or hopefully they are. And now they cast a Dream Stealer. Has Menace, and whenever it deals combat damage to a player, that player discards that many cards. It has Eternalize. So we'll have to keep our eye on that as well, especially if it hits the graveyard. And now they get a Lightning Greaves. So the Rankle players certainly hit all the steps here. They've got to be pretty happy at the moment. They move to equip the Greaves to the Dream Stealer. Let's just see who they're more afraid of here. It's very likely that they'll probably swing in at us, even though our commander was removed. We've still got quite a few cards in hand. But no, they swing in at the Xyris player. Dream Stealer triggers, so they have to discard 1 card. And they discarded a creature card. So Rankle gets another 2/2 zombie. And that's it for their turn. And what a turn that was. Howling Mine triggers now for Daretti. They play an Urza's Saga. And now they tap out for a Chain Reaction. It deals X damage to each creature, where X is the number of creatures on the battlefield. We're quite happy to see that. We have to slow the Rankle player down a little bit. And it looks like we're seeing a very control-heavy version of Daretti there. And that is it for them. So we draw a paradoxical outcome, which we don't really want to see at the moment. At the moment, all we want to see is lands. So we'll see if we get it off Howling Mine, and we do, thankfully. So we'll play our Fiery Islet. Now, if we did just have one more white mana, we could have done some serious damage to the Daretti player and the Rankle player by destroying some of their key artifacts and enchantments, but unfortunately we don't have the colors we need. I don't think we want to use Inscription of Insight just yet. We may use it next turn if we don't hit a land drop. We could use Distorting Wake to try to slow down Rankle a little bit, but again, I don't think it's really worth it at the moment. I think we've got to sandbag that a little bit, especially if we see a little bit more interaction coming around the table. I'd like to get a few more cards out of their hands, even though Howling Mine certainly isn't helping us there, getting it out of their hands. We don't have enough mana to hold up Sublime Epiphany at the moment. So really, I think what we'll just do is we'll set ourselves up for future turns and we'll get our Metallurgic Summonings down. At worst, if it ends up getting removed, then that'll just be one less removal piece that we have to deal with when Hinata comes down. And I think we'll just pass it there. Howling Mine triggers for Xyris. So it looks like they just leave the turn there. Maybe they're also holding up interaction. Mana Crypt triggers for Rankle. So I think we're going to have to play a bit of a slower game here and be very methodical, especially when we go to recast Hinata again. If we don't have lands in our hand to ensure we can get her out again if she gets removed, we may have to just sit back, slow it down a little bit, interact with the board a little bit more. I'd really love to see another white mana come into our hand so we could cast this Heliod's Intervention. I think that would really set back all of our opponents actually. So they start with casting a Mind Stone, and now they cast a Death Cloud. So that is something we definitely did not want to see. And we don't have anything to say about that, unfortunately. They've chosen X equals 3, so each player is going to lose 3 life, discard 3 cards, sacrifice 3 creatures, then sacrifice 3 lands. And that seemed to be enough to make the Daretti player want to scoop. Look, we're going to be staying in this. We're going to fight the good fight until we really know we don't have anything left. Because they're only going to have access to colorless mana, so I don't think that they're going to be as far ahead as what some of the other players may be thinking. So we'll allow that to go through. And Xyris casts a Negate. So that just goes to show you why you shouldn't scoop straight away either, because sometimes people have the answer. Very happy to see that happen. But they did take care of one player for us. Deathcloud just basically red kill one player. And now with them out of the way, the turn moves straight to us. We draw a land. Very happy to see that. Howling Mine triggers. We get another land. Okay, so things are starting to look a bit better for us. So we'll play our Sea of Clouds for turn. Now the Xyris player does have 1 mana left up. So there is every chance they could have something like a Swan Song or any other form of 1 mana counter in their hand. They could even have a Red Elemental Blast. But I think it's worth going for the Heliod's Intervention here. While they're mostly tapped out, I think we can hurt both of them pretty well. So let's give it a go. We'll take out the Soul Ring, the Mana Crypt, the Waste Knot, and the Lightning Greaves. And that's going to trigger our Metallurgic Summonings. So we're going to make a nice 6/6 Construct token. And this is what I absolutely love about cards like Metallurgic Summonings. Regardless of whether the card goes through or not, you get the big token. And it looks like it resolves. Absolutely great to see. We're definitely back in the game. And we're going to leave it there. Howling Mine triggers for Xyris. They start with an Arcane Signet. And now they cast a Rampant Growth. And with that they end the turn. Howling Mine triggers for Rankle. They play a land. And now they cast an Arterial Flow. Each opponent discards 2 cards. They don't control a vampire, so the second ability doesn't matter. So that is going to go through. I'd like to hold on to the land, so we definitely won't get rid of that. Paradoxical outcome is going to be protection for our commander when we try to get it down next turn. Distorting Wake is going to set them both back a little bit. So as much as I wouldn't like to, I'm actually going to get rid of the Baral's Expertise and Sublime Epiphany here, just because I want to hold on to our card draw as much as possible. And we do have Graveyard Recursion in the deck, a decent number, so we'll be able to get those cards back hopefully if we need it, but we want to keep the cards flowing in our hand. I think that's the way we're going to get over the top of both of these opponents. And if anything too crazy comes out, we always have Distorting Wake there to be able to take care of it. And now they finish up with a Dark Confident, and that's it for them. So we draw an Aether Gale, another nice piece of interaction, and a Deserted Beach for turn. So let's play that Deserted Beach, and then I think we'll get our commander down here. We have the Construct token available, so if Rankle comes down next turn, we'll be able to sacrifice that, so we should hopefully be able to protect Hinata. And if worse comes to worse, we can always use the Paradoxical outcome to not only bounce it back to our hand, but also draw a card or 2. So we're just going to pass through combat, and we'll leave the turn there. If we can keep Hinata out by the time it gets back to our next turn, we're going to start to really get ahead. Xyris plays a land, and now they cast an Impact Tremors. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, it deals 1 damage to each opponent. That's a very, very scary card with Xyris, so I think our bounce spells are definitely looking pretty good here. That's the type of card in that deck that can just all of a sudden cut your life in half very, very quickly. Now that also seems to be their turn done, and with the potential for blue mana up, it looks like they may be holding up interaction. Dark Confident triggers for Rankle. They reveal a Pharika's Libation, so they lose 3 life. Now Howling Mine triggers. They play a land, and they cast a Siphon Mine. Each other player discards a card, and they draw a card for each card discarded this way. We don't have any problem with that. This is a bit more of a difficult choice, but I think the Inscription of Insight's got to go, so we'll discard that. And now they finish with an Elderfang Disciple. When it ETBs, each opponent discards a card. So I'm guessing the Xyris player isn't quite happy to see this, seeing as they're starting to get pretty low with cards in hand. I'm actually going to discard the land here because we've got more than enough lands at the moment out, and we'll probably draw into another one pretty soon with the Howling Mine still on the battlefield. Now they move to combat, sending their Dark Confident over at Xyris, and that's it for their turn. So we get to untap with our commander, which is great. We'll also draw 2 cards here. So we start with an Arcane Signet, not bad, and then a land. So we could have had better draws there, but making our land drop every turn is going to be relevant, especially if Hinata starts to get removed a lot more. So we'll begin by getting our Arcane Signet down. Then we'll move to combat. We'll send Hinata over Rankle's way, and we'll send our Construct towards Xyris. Both take the damage, which is great. Now in our second main phase, let's try casting our Aether Gale, which is also going to generate us a token. So because we only have 6 targets, we're going to have to choose all 6. Ideally, we wouldn't give them another chance to get Elderfang Disciple down, but I think it's worth it to be able to bounce all the permanents back, especially for what's happening on Xyris' side. Now let's tap for our 2 blue. That triggers Metallurgic Summonings, so we make a 5/5. And now let's see if Aether Gale resolves. And it does. Absolutely great to see. And otherwise, we just pass the turn. And this is the ideal state to be in with Hinata, is to be able to grind our opponents down, cast spells, keep them under control, while our win con, which at the moment is Metallurgic Summonings, just keeps spitting out tokens to hopefully take our opponents down. So they start by recasting Arcane Signet, and because a lot of our spells actually do bounce creatures, it works very well with a creature combat focus theme, which our deck definitely does have. And then now they recast their Howling Mine, and now they finish with their Impact Tremors. So that's what we want to see. They just spend their entire turn essentially redeploying what they had down before. They also missed a land drop, which is notable. So that means they're not really getting ahead from where they were before. Howling Mine triggers for Rankle. And I'm a lot more worried about them because they do have 10 cards in hand at the moment. So they're probably not going to be missing their land drops. So they start by casting their Mind Stone. And now they cast their Pharika's Libation, choosing for us to sacrifice an enchantment, which at the moment all we have is our Metallurgic Summonings. So because that is our win con at the moment, and I think it's going to really help us close out this game, I think it's worth using the Paradoxical Outcome to protect it. So we're actually going to choose the Metallurgic Summonings, and we're going to choose our 2 Mana Rocks because I want to draw a lot more cards, especially seeing as we're facing a discard deck there. So let's pay our 1 blue, and we'll actually use our Arcane Signet to do that. And that also triggers our Metallurgic Summoning, so we get a 4/4 from it. And so in addition to that, we draw a Deflecting Swat, which is really great to see. That's some protection, and a Bioforce, which is going to be able to take out their artifacts. So with regard to playing Hinata, we're really living the dream at the moment. We're using her ability to its absolute extent, and we're having fun doing it as well. And luckily for us, that is all they can do for their turn. Howling Mine triggers, we draw a land, and off Howling Mine, we draw another land. So I think for this turn, we'll get down our Spectator Seeding while we still have 2 opponents. Next, we'll get down our Metallurgic Summonings. And now I don't want my opponents drawing any more cards. I think the Howling Mine's done more than enough. So let's get a bit of value off of our Bioforce. We'll pay a red. That triggers our Metallurgic Summonings. We make a 4/4, and that goes through wonderfully. So now we're going to move to combat. I'm actually going to send everything over at the discard player because they're the ones I'm most concerned with at the moment. And that takes them down to 11. And both of our opponents have seen enough from that, and they've both decided to scoop. Well, that was quite a game for us. Let's go to the wrap up and have a little bit of a discussion about it. So I don't think there'll be too many arguments when I say a big factor in helping us to win that game was Howling Mine. It helped us draw into our lands after a potentially greedy keep, and it allowed us to continue to make our land drops as the game progressed. Now this most definitely could have been a different game if Daretti didn't scoop, but I think it also demonstrates why you shouldn't scoop early unless all other options have been exhausted, as Rankle wasn't going to be in a game-winning state even if they did end up resolving their Death Cloud. But once Daretti was gone and we were able to resolve Hinata, we got to see the real raw power of our interaction spells, in particular Aether Gale and Heliod's Intervention, in helping us to slow down our opponents enough so we could get ahead of the game. Now Rankle got off to a very fast start, and it was only because of the interaction from the Daretti player and us that we were able to slow them down. It also didn't help that the Howling Mine from the Xyris player also went against their discard strategy, even if it was keeping their hands full throughout the game. Xyris seemed to be doing well, and they did have some key pieces set up, but it didn't seem like they were really taking advantage of the Howling Mine as much as the other players at the table, which was partly demonstrated by the missed land drops they experienced. In the end, once we kept Hinata out, continued to resolve our interaction spells, and combined that with Metallurgic Summon-ins, the value was just too much for our remaining opponents to overcome. After playing many games with Hinata now, I can well and truly confirm that this is the control player's dream commander. But just fair warning, in a lot of the games that I've played, it has been the prime target of removal, so make sure not to step into the kitchen if you can't handle the heat. But that's it for today's video. Thank you very much for joining me, and I hope to see you next time. Until then.